My name is Casey Welch. I am the chair of the Legislative Committee for the Manatee Chamber of Commerce. My other hat I wear is the Executive Director of the Institute for Public Policy and Leadership at the University of South Florida, Sarasota Manatee campus. Again, I want to welcome you all this morning. If you all would silence your cell phones, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone. There are several elected officials in the audience. If I could have them stand and be recognized, I'm going to apologize if I miss anybody. I tried to check off my list when we go through. We'll start with Manatee County Supervisor of Election, former Senate President Pro Tem Mike Bennett. There he is. Clerk of the Courts for Manatee County, Angel Colonesso. Our host here in the city of Bradenton this morning, Mayor Jean Brown. Councilwomen Marianne Barnaby, Pam Coachman, Jane Coker, Lisa Gonzalez Moore. I think so, all of them. Oh, there you go, Pam. I meant Pam. And Councilman Josh Kramer. Sorry to bet you. Hey, ladies first. That's the right thing to do. From the city of Palmetto, Mayor Shirley Groover Bryant. Good to see you again. And I saw most of the Board of County Commissioners this morning. Kevin Van Osterbridge, Amanda Ballard. Y'all standing? I saw Amanda. I know you, Kevin. Yeah, stand to be recognized, right? Yeah, okay. George Cruz, Mike Ron. That's it. I didn't see any other county commissioners. Okay. Oh, over here? Oh, I am so sorry. Palmetto City Commissioner Brian Williams. I apologize, sir. I always take bets to see how many of these I miss. So, from the School District of Manatee County, Chad Choate. Did he make it? I thought I saw him. And from Congressman Vern Buchanan's office, Tara Polton and Susanna Morrison. Y'all are going to recognize your own staff, right? Y'all will recognize your own staff, right? Maybe, okay. Thank you all for your continued public service. Also, I would like to recognize the Chamber's top investors. These companies invest at the platinum level of support in the important work and mission of the Chamber, starting with Brown & Sons Funeral Home and Crematory, Carr, Riggs & Ingram, the City of Bradenton, Freedom Village of Bradenton, IMG Academy, Manatee County Government, Manatee Memorial Hospital, MCR Health and All Care Options, the Mosaic Company, NDC Commercial Real Estate and NDC Construction Company, the Pittsburgh Pirates and the Bradenton Marauders, Raymond James Wealth Management and Bruce Body, the Sarasota Bradenton International Airport, Seaport Manatee, and South State Bank. Again, thank you to those sponsors. I want to take a special moment to thank the sponsor for this specific event for Pancakes and Politics, and that's Spectrum by Charter Communications. With us today are Albie Kaminsky and Jessica Caruso. Spectrum has been a top sponsor of the Chamber's annual legislative events for many years, both Pancakes and Politics and some's favorite Politics and Pints. We never quite get those lined up. But anyway, we appreciate their support as well as their involvement on our legislative committee. I want to invite Albie to come up and share a few words, please. Albie.
All right, good morning, everybody. My name is Albie Kaminsky. I'm the Director of State Government Affairs for Charter Communications, or as you all know in the community as Spectrum. And I just really love pancakes, is really what this all comes down to. And so do my colleagues, joined here by Jessica Caruso. She wants to wave for a little bit here. And some of our other colleagues here in the community from multiple divisions of the Spectrum Enterprise, Spectrum Small Business, Spectrum Reach. You see a lot of different divisions, but ultimately you can all just rely on us as a big Spectrum family and community. And we are excited to sponsor again for this upcoming for this event. And big thank you to Jackie and the rest of the team here at the Manatee County Chamber. Again, there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to put this successful event together. So thank you to the chamber and Casey. Where? Oh, there, he's right next to me. Goodness. Thank you, Casey, obviously for being such a great moderator and a great champion for the entire region here. Within, I guess you call this a part-time job and everything, but it feels like a full-time job because. Casey, I also serve on the legislative committee with Casey here, and he does a phenomenal job of advocating the entire region's priorities here to this delegation here. So again, thank you all so much for coming. Again, from Spectrum's perspective, whether it's executing, expanding, or evolving our network, ultimately, we're here to make connections that matter, and you have a delegation here that makes connections that matter. So you have the best delegation, I think, in the entire state. They know what it takes to get things done, not just here at a local level, but obviously at a state level and at a federal level too. So we're very blessed to have this team. And again, thank you guys so much for coming, and look forward to, again, I just love the pancakes. So let's have some great pancakes and politics.
So, thanks, Al. Thank you, Albie. And what's better than pancakes on a chilly Monday morning? As Albie said, we worked together on the legislative committee to come up with the agenda, and I hope most of you, if you haven't taken a look at it, this is the agenda that our legislative committee started in late September working on and worked through and had a lot of meetings weekly. We really cranked through this agenda. Want to have all the legislative committee members please to stand and be recognized for a little bit round of applause, please, for all your hard work. Yeah. I really want to thank all of them, not only for putting up with me, but also really working hard to diligently think about the needs of this community. As you see, this isn't one we just cut and paste a new year on, and we really work through each one of these issues. People bring new issues to the table, and we also take great pride in taking issues off of this list. So it's important for the chamber. I mean, this is really for the chamber where the rubber meets the road, is when we're affecting policy, advocating for the issues that are affecting your businesses and the community on a daily basis. And to that, we also just don't make this little paper and drop it off and leave it in the chamber offices. We go to Tallahassee, and I want to thank the folks who went to Tallahassee last month in November and walked the halls. We met with the Florida Department of Transportation, Department of Environmental Protection. I almost messed up my acronym there, DEP, and we advocated on these issues with our delegation. And I will echo Albie's comments. We have an incredible delegation that not only are we proud of, but the state looks to for leadership, and we're incredibly blessed by that. And they always have an open door to us. We have robust discussions about all these policy issues. It's not just a photo op. We really talk about what are the issues that are facing, whether it's insurance rates and issues that you all talk about with the chamber, that we hear down in the chamber retreat, and we hear the things that are affecting you. So not only want to thank the delegation, want to thank the Chamber Legislative Committee for all their work. Couple housekeeping items real quick. Representative Mike Grant and Representative Tommy Gregory will not be meeting with us today. I know Carol from Rep. Gregory's office is here. Thank you for coming. Representative McFarland was unable to join us as well. Where we heard that Reps Beltran and Buchanan are en route, and when they come here, they can get their pancakes. If not, then that's all right. So we're going to start by having each member of the delegation talk about their priorities for the upcoming session, which starts very quickly, less than a month from now, and then we will go to Q&A. But right now, I would like to introduce this State Senator Jim Boyd.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Casey, and I do, as Albie said, we appreciate your leadership and your shepherding the group through Tallahassee. It's fun and always nice to see our colleagues from our community up advocating for what's important to them. We think we kind of know, but when you take time away from your businesses and your work and the things that you do every day, we know it costs you time and money, and we appreciate you coming up to reinforce what's important to our community. Thanks, Jackie and for always having this event and then having the wrap-up event after session. The Manatee Chamber's been, as long as I've been involved, not just in the legislature, but Chamber as well, it's been a big part of their year, so thank you. And Albie and Jessica, thank you for Spectrum and for what you all do to put this together for us. I always say it, and y'all may get tired of it, but I'm particularly proud of Albie. No offense, Jessica. Albie came through the process, worked with a very good friend of mine who's now in the Senate, Jay Trumbull. And I just saw Jay this weekend, and we were laughing because he says, "You going to steal any more of my employees?" Because Albie kind of came over to me from Trumbull's office way back when and worked with me for a while and made me look really good. So he's a star and just such a great part of our community. So thank you, Albie, for being who you are. So I think I'm going to just be brief after all that, but this year should be a little bit slower than it's been in the past. Mike, we've heard all that before, right? But so far, they're in the Senate anyway, and these Will can speak to the House. We've only had 500 or 600 bills filed. Usually in the year, there's like a couple, 2,500 to 3,000. Somewhere around 10% of those generally get across the finish line at the end of the day, and the governor signs them. But this year, there hasn't been a great just wave of bills yet. They're starting to come, and bill drafting in the Senate anyway is pretty busy right now. So I assume there's a lot that are getting ready to come out. But I think it's going to be a pretty slow year after last year was what I would consider pretty much a banner year for Florida and what we were able to accomplish in the legislature. And I know y'all talked about that after session last year. But a couple of things coming out of the Senate this year that are the Senate President's priorities. One is the Live Healthy Act that, last year we did Live Local, and now now we're looking at the healthcare in Florida and what is important in terms of access and affordability and those types of things. And Tom McDougall from Manatee Memorial, we've talked about it a little bit and what's important to our community as well. So that's, some of it's kind of coming out. Some of it is still being worked on in the finer points. There's a component of it I hope to be involved in that I'm really excited about, and that's a mental health component. That's something that I think our state has been, not by design, but just been behind in over the years. Over the past 3 or 4 or 5 years, I think we've done a fair amount to catch up, but there's more we can do. And the president asked me if I would work on that with her, and I was very excited because that's really, really critical to our communities and to our state. And it's something, especially the opioid epidemic and fentanyl and the things that I've been able to work on in the past, that's given us the next, hopefully, level of care for those folks that have dealt with those addictions and those problems and circumstances that we can get them maybe the help they really need. So looking forward to that. A couple other things I'm working on. Last year I did a dental bill that almost got there, but it didn't quite. I'm working on a bill with some cleanup language and Habitat for Humanity statewide to help their process go a little smoother in the mortgage and loan application process. There's a public-private partnership bill that I'm working on, and there have been a lot of those in the past, but that's something that I think is important for our state to be involved in, opportunities with private companies or private developers or private individuals to partner with the state in areas that make sense and makes a difference for our community. So that's something that I'll be working on. Also, a sales tax exemption for sale of impact and impact windows and garage and doors and the resistant glass from the hurricanes and the big winds. That's part of My Safe Florida Home that we did last year, and then we did a little more in special session. So that's just gives the ability for a period of time to buy those products. And there are some loans available, as you probably remember us talking about, but also gives you a chance to buy some of those products for that period of time tax-free, which I think is a sort of a no-brainer, but something that we need to do and put into statute to get it done. Other than that, there's a lot of appropriations requests. We were going through it last week. Kathy and Amanda from my team are here, and we were going through it. I think I've got about 65 or so appropriations requests. Some of them are maybe from my friend Joe Gruters. Read between the lines on that one if you want to. But no, I'm thrilled to partner with my buddy Joe on some things that are important for our region. But there's a couple things across the state, but a lot of them are from this area, Manatee County and Hillsborough, that I also represent part of Hillsborough. So there is some money, but I've told everybody, don't get your hopes really, really up, because, lots of people are asking for that money. And the budget and the economy looks really good for a while in Florida. And I'm just hoping it carries on for the next 5 years as I move into a leadership position in the Senate. I hope there's a little money left when I get there. But in the meantime, I think there's a lot of good we can do for Florida and for our community. And believe me, this delegation here is going to work as hard as they can to bring as much back to Manatee County and Hillsborough and our Sarasota and our surrounding community. We're going to work as hard as we can. Last year, and the others can tell you, but I was able to secure about 100 million of appropriations for this region. I had 125, and the governor didn't agree with all of them, which is part of the process, and I respect that and get that. But $100 million is a lot of money, and by any measure. So, and my colleagues were able to bring a lot back as well, maybe some more than that, hopefully. But so that's important to us as well, because it's your tax dollars, and what you pay in taxes every year goes to, some here and then a lot there. And it's important for us to bring as much back as we can, and also give some tax breaks for our citizens that puts money back, directly back in their pockets. So that's something I'll be working on. I know my colleagues will be working on as well. So I'll be quiet, but I just want to say again, it was mentioned earlier by Casey, we do have the best delegation in the state of Florida. Your team here is hardworking. They listen, engaged, and really work well together. We all, I believe, do to get done what's important for all of you and all of us. So I'm honored and thrilled to be able to work with such a great group, and it'll be another good year, I think. We start early, it's the second Tuesday or first Tuesday, whatever it is, the 9th, I think, of January. We'll be back up there, and then we go till the first week of March. So we'll be around, and I know you'll be up there to see us, and we'll look forward to some questions later. But thank you all for the support. Thank you for being here this early in the morning and interacting with us on what's important to you. Thanks, Casey.
Now for the southern part of Manatee County, Senator Joe Critters.
Thank you, Casey, and thanks for having us here, Chamber. We appreciate it. For those of you who don't know, if you look at Casey, then look at me stand up here, you could tell our body types are pretty close together. And the only reason why I say that is because 50 years ago, Cardinal Mooney won their first state championship, which Casey and I were not on, but Cardinal Mooney won a state championship just last month. I know George Cruz, Jen Coker, fellow Cougars. So Casey and I competed at Cardinal Mooney for the same positions, not only in football, but some other sports. He's a good sport. He's been one of my best friends for a long time. Andy Minor, great seeing you. But I love serving in the Senate. I love representing Manatee County. It's every year, it's just a phenomenal opportunity to go up to Tallahassee, to go to bat for the issues and my constituents and people that I care about. I will tell you that I'm so fortunate to be part of this delegation now, because Jim Boyd is still the superstar. You guys knew him when he was in the House. He makes everything a lot easier. The insurance rates, which may not have gone down yet, will in fact go down over the coming months because of his leadership and his alone. If there's any trial attorneys in here, watch out, because Jim Boyd has single-handedly dismantled some of their long-established laws that they had in place, and that's the only way, really, that we are going to correct this major issue that we're facing here in Florida. But insurance rates continue and will continue to be one of our big issues, but give it time, because it will be fixed. The last time I was here, I talked about what my biggest priority was over the last couple of years, and that was, of all things, alimony reform. Nobody really cares about alimony reform unless you're going through a divorce. But if you've been through a divorce, you know how devastating it is. But the process of going through that divorce is more devastating than the divorce itself. And so what we did is we put some safe guardrails in place to try to make sure that families can keep more of what they earn at the end of the day, to try to make the process better. My big piece of legislation this year is another local bill, and we called it the Lilies Bill. I've been working with Ed Brodsky, Craig Schaefer, the state attorney's office, the sheriffs, mad. And what it has to do is, has anybody heard of the Lilly's bill yet? No. So basically what happened is there was I think a 13-year-old girl named Lily who was killed walking home from school in Pineview in Sarasota. She was hit, right, she was walking in a cross section. She was impaled into the car. The guy drove a couple hundred yards, stopped, pushed her out. She died 7 days later. That individual then drove straight to the body shop in Tampa and told the body shop that he hit a deer. And thank goodness a good Samaritan saw at the body shop this hole and then saw some reports in the media and made a call to Crime Stoppers or whatever, and all of a sudden put the two and two together, and this guy was recently sentenced to, I think, 20 years in prison. We have 120,000 hit and runs that occur every year in Florida that go unsolved. And the problem is getting worse and worse and worse. So how do you solve that, right? People hit people. And by the way, on Thanksgiving, a 16-year-old near our county borders, if you guys don't know this story, was riding his motorcycle, hit, right, run over. That guy tried to do a hit and run, but he dragged the kid for a mile. This issue is out of control. And what's interesting is before even these two incidents happened, Ed Brodsky talked to me 3 or 4 years ago and said, listen, there's so many of these hit and runs. I don't know what we have to do to fix this. And I said, well, come up with a solution. And then once these two happened, they said, we knew it was bad, but now we got to take care of this. And so what we're going to do is just like, if you remember when they started fingerprinting you when you went to the pawn shop, right? How much that impacted, stolen goods and being able to sell them at the pawn shops, taking your ID. So what we're going to do is when you take your car to a body shop and it's over a certain threshold, we're going to make sure that the information that they collect on behalf of your insurance company or on behalf of their records, what they do is they put that in a separate database that's only available to law enforcement so that they can review the records on an ongoing basis. There are some people that don't like this, as you can imagine. I'm not saying all body shops are bad guys, because there's a lot of great body shops out there. But however, there are bad actors, and we got to make sure that the law enforcement community has the tools that they can to go after at least some of these issues. But that's probably my biggest issue this year. It specifically hits home because of what's happened in our communities over the last couple of years. And Senator Boyd's exactly right. In terms of the number of bills overall this session, I probably average, I call myself a workhorse of the Senate because I'm not as popular as Jim, so I need to run a lot more bills to raise the money to be successful out there. So I run 55 to 60 bills on average. This year, I'm only running 10 bills. 10 bills completely, yes. Which my staffers, Hunter and Vicky, are very happy. We're going to have a much easier session. And yes, I have to go to Senator Boyd and I say, please take all these appropriation projects from me. I need you to run almost everything. And that's because some of you may know, some of you don't know, I've been the only member of the legislature. I think we've since picked up Michael Beltran in the last month. But for about a year, 12 months, I was the only member of the legislature to be with former President Donald Trump and his team, because I was his chairman in 2016 for Florida. I was his chairman in 2020, and I once again lead a lot of his operations here in Florida politically. So from that standpoint, when you're faced with a governor who's actually facing him on a daily basis, I have to go to a lot of my colleagues and reach out and ask for help. And the problem is Kathy in Senator Boyd's office and Senator Boyd has to do double time because they have to do all their normal work and they have to do most of mine. But for me, I get to play a lot of extra golf in Tallahassee, and it's really a fun time. But I love being here. Yeah, but I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me be here today.
I promise you the 9 o'clock show is totally different than the 8:30 show. Want to thank Senator Grush for being a great senator, but even better friend. I really appreciate you not telling him what weight class we were in weightlifting. Your discretion, a better part of valor. Anyway, without further ado, former chair of this committee, Senator Boyd was a former chair as well, State Representative Will Robinson.
Well, it's always such a great privilege and pleasure to come speak to you all. You're actually in my House District, House District 71. So welcome to District 71, former Senator Boyd's House District as well. And I want to kind of pick up with what Senators Gruters and Boyd mentioned. It was interesting, when I came in, we had, I believe, all freshman members of the delegation and the Senate President. And now we have those that are rising in the ranks of their respective bodies, and you have leaders throughout your delegation. And Senator Gruters is very modest. He may get all his bills vetoed this session, but he's going to be the superstar. He is going to be the superstar of the next Senate President, and he has just done a wonderful job for not only our community, but throughout the state. Senator Boyd, goes without saying, you're a superstar on your side. You'll be a future Senate President. And then my dear friend, Mike Beltran. Now, I'm the chair of Civil Justice, and Mike is a member. And guess who files the most interesting, thought-provoking bills but Mr. Beltran. And he and I are so aligned, and it's so great. I wish Tommy was here, because Tommy is the chair of Judiciary. So you almost have the entire Judiciary silo sitting right here. And we so believe in the sanctity of Article 3 and the strength of our courts. We always talk about the executive, we always talk about the legislature, but it is so incredibly important as two lawyers that you have a very strong and vibrant and independent judiciary. And we've worked very hard in civil justice and in judiciary to make sure that we have that. And Mike has filed some more bills this session that will get us there. But we are right now thankfully done, with all of our committee weeks. We are ready for session. And as the senators mentioned, a lot less bills have been filed this year than last year. That's maybe not a bad thing. We're supposed to believe in constraint and less government and stuff like that as conservatives. And we see that happening right now. And last session, if I'm lucky to serve 8 sessions, I'm going into my 6th session. Last session, I will truthfully believe, will be the biggest, most intense session that I've ever been a part of. Every single day was some major piece of legislation. And a lot of what we're going to be doing this session, like the senators mentioned, is making sure those bills worked and that are now law, and maybe some one-offs and some glitch fixes to those bills. I certainly have a couple bills that I'll be dealing with that I passed last session that we'll be refining a little bit. But for me, this session is really all about a lot of the priorities that you all mentioned in your platform. And you only have to look right in front of you and behind me and see those bridges right there filled with traffic and folks coming here and getting to work, and how difficult it can be. Probably, at least I was late getting here because of the traffic-related issues. We're actually going to be attending a ribbon cutting for 44th Avenue East, a major link of infrastructure for this community. This community looked a lot different when I was born 40 plus years ago. We have now, 1,000 people a day moving to Florida. A lot of those people are moving here to Manatee County, and that comes with challenges. Challenges to our infrastructure, challenges to our water system, challenges to our schools. And as Senator Boyd mentioned, that requires us as delegation to step up and to get appropriations projects and infrastructure projects and water quality projects funded. And that's certainly a priority of this delegation and a priority of mine as well. We'll be replacing that DeSoto Bridge, and then this community will decide, hopefully fairly soon, on options about what to do going over that river, because it is a problem that's not going away. It's probably one of the most bottlenecked traffic issues in our community. It affects the city of Palmetto. It affects the city of Bradenton. It affects folks getting from St. Pete all the way down to Sarasota. So that and several other infrastructure projects we're going to be looking at this legislative session. Taxes. We are doing very well in the state of Florida in terms of revenue. We actually were able to pass the largest tax cut in the history of the state of Florida last session. Senator Boyd mentioned getting that money back to you all. It's not government's money, it's your money. And so I'm very hopeful with our tax package this session. I serve on Ways and Means, and actually Representative Buchanan is the vice chair of Ways and Means. We're hopeful to be able to do that again because of the fiscal policies that we've put in place. Not only that we've done, but certainly Senator Bennett and others before us have allowed Florida to grow and to bring in revenue while keeping costs and taxes low. And that has allowed a surplus of revenue to work on important things like infrastructure, drawing down on our debt, and other things that help the pocketbooks of all Floridians. So I think this session, we've got to also be careful. And I remember what President Galvano once said, is sometimes an issue hasn't yet revealed itself. And I still feel like there's some issue out there that will reveal itself. I wasn't in office at the time, but it happened during the second session of a presiding officer's term, the Parkland disaster, and then we all heard of COVID. COVID also happened in the second session of actually President Galvano's term. So I do think that there possibly will be some issue that we're not thinking of right now that will come to the forefront. And that's why I mentioned at the beginning how strong this delegation is. No matter what issue comes in front of us, we will be prepared to act on it on behalf of you all to make sure that your quality of life gets better and your taxes stay low. And so it is just overall just a pleasure and a privilege. Can't believe it's going by so fast, my sixth legislative session. But hopefully I've learned a little bit and can get things done efficiently for you all. And hope you all have a Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Robinson. I know you filed, what, about $1 billion in appropriations requests this year? No.
I wanted Jim.
Okay, Jim, Senator President's going to do that. All right, just want to thank you again for your leadership and always being a champion on behalf of the chamber. So last but not least, coming all the way from Hillsborough County to come join us, Representative Mike Beltran.
Well, thank you. Good morning. Good to be back in Bradenton. Chair Robinson already mentioned me because I was one of those unfortunate people on that bridge over there about 20 minutes ago. So I echo that. I appreciate it. It's also good for your South Riverview state representatives trying to get down to Manatee County. So I'm Mike Beltran. For those of you who don't know me, I'm relatively new to the delegation. It's been just over a year now, but I represent most of South Hillsborough and then North Manatee. So if you're north of the river and you're close to the coast, you're probably in my district. So about a quarter is my total district is North Manatee County, all north of the river, and then I have all of south coastal Hillsborough, so Apollo Beach, Ruskin, South Riverview, Apollo Beach, Sun City, a little bit of Waimama, and all that down to the border. So I came in with Chair Robinson, got elected in 2018. So it's also going to be my sixth session. Try to focus on the courts. I'm a practicing litigator, so I really believe in the efficiency of the courts and believe in spending money on the courts. It's actually one of our smallest funding silos. That's partly because we spend so much on education and healthcare because we get so many federal dollars that we're actually obligated to spend those. We don't really have a whole lot of discretion about that. But, dispute resolution, law enforcement, things like that, those are the core functions of government. That's what, if government does nothing else, that's what government should be doing. And the courts have been backed up for a number of reasons. COVID, some folks touched on insurance litigation, whatever you think about consumer protection. Look, there's definitely a lot of insurance litigation. I'll concede that to the other side. But anyway, so I have a bill to increase the staffing of the judiciary. When you're in federal court works like what they call a rocket docket. Each federal judge, they have a courtroom deputy, they have a JA, they have 2 law clerks. You file something in federal court, a lot of times you don't even have to go to a hearing. The judge will issue an order. Cases move quickly. They're usually done in a year or 2. State court, through really no fault of the state judiciary, cases can linger 4 or 5 years. By the time I try a case, usually I've taken the file from somebody else. The case has been, I tried a 2010 case in 2015. Last year, I tried a 2017 case. I got 2018, 2019 cases still in my portfolio. Usually on the second or third lawyer, usually I've taken the file from, and usually the client fires the lawyer because they're not happy with how quickly the cases are going. Part of the problem is you have a hearing for almost everything, even things that can be decided on the papers. And then the second thing is you go in, you have a hearing, and the judges are so busy, they say, "Oh, Beltran, you won, go write the order." So I go write the order. I send it to the other side. The other side has to kind of approve the order, which is kind of weird because it's like you're agreeing that you lost. It really doesn't make much sense. So of course they're litigators. They're being paid by their client. So I said, "Oh no, the judge didn't say that, or he said this that you didn't include." There's like a whole other like hearing or exchange of papers after the hearing, talking about what happened at the hearing. The judge can write the order. It's your order. Like, go write the order. Well, they don't have time, so they need law clerks. I was a law clerk. That was my first job. I came down to Florida. It was in New York. It was during the Great Recession. Wasn't a lot of opportunity there. I got law clerk job with a federal judge. It was a great opportunity for me. It was helped my career. I hope I helped the judge, and I hope I helped some cases move a little faster than they would have if there wasn't a law clerk. So I think the state judiciary deserves those law clerks, and then the state judiciary should be held to that same standard once we supply them the with the tools that they need and with the staffing that they need. Then they need to be held accountable the way the Congress holds the federal judiciary accountable. They every 6 months they have to say if they have cases over 3 years old. They have to say if they have motions that have been undecided for 6 months. If you've been going through a divorce, you have civil litigation, you're a business, you've been sued, you're trying to get that dismissed. You know what I'm talking about. I hope I'm not too much in the weeds, but that's an important thing. We got a couple appropriations in there. I'm basically giving the governor kind of a roadmap at what he should veto if he wants to get back at me for the Trump thing. So, so at the risk of doing that, but anyway, we have. I generally go pretty light on the appropriations. The reason is if I file an appropriation, I'm asking somebody in Pensacola or Key West to pay for something in my district, right? So the question is should I file that? Would I be happy if someone in Key West or Pensacola filed that, asked my constituents to pay for something in their district? In the case of my district, we've had massive growth. It's kind of that corridor along I-75, massive growth. I mean, basically the population doubled in the last decade. So we do have some requests for bridges. Actually, they're old bridges in Sun City Center. And then we also have requests for some educational infrastructure. The schools are really very heavily overcrowded. So anyway, so we filed those. In terms of, we have, sorry, my phone screen locked out of this. I went to Piney Point a couple weeks ago. That's coming along. That's in my district. It used to be Chair Robinson had actually done a lot of had exercised a lot of leadership on that back when the leak happened a couple of years ago. But it's in my district now with the lines moving around. So I've been there a couple times too and got to know the receiver there, who's kind of superintending the project. So that's proceeding apace. That should be done in another year and change if the current schedule holds. And then I'm gonna have a tax cut bill. We have a lot of these little fees that people charge. Like you go get your driver's license, it's $25. You get your CWP renewed, it's $25. There's you go to the state park, it's like $2 at the gate. I mean, they pay the guy $15 an hour at least to collect the $2. I mean, it really makes very little sense to be collecting these small fees. So I asked my staff, I said, get a list of all the things we do to generate revenue, that basically taxes and fees. Then we'll start at the bottom, the things with the lowest fiscal impact, where the cost of administering this fee is probably a considerable part of the amount that's being collected from the taxpayer. And let's get rid of these fees. We always have these budget surpluses. The last couple of years, we've had budget surpluses. And then we're like, okay, well, how are we going to spend the money? We saved a lot of money. We've replenished our reserves, but let's just stop charging all that money to people. And two other bills kind of for senior protection. One of those is we had a bill that said if you're an investment advisor and a senior tries to cash out all of their money at once, and it kind of has some of the badges of that the senior may be being defrauded, that you have some certain checks and balances you can go through before you disperse that money. Where the bill would expand that to banks as well. I'll be working on that. And then I have another bill on misdirected wires. Under the current rules, if I send a wire to XYZ company and I say it's account 12345 and I send it there, the bank is not obligated to do to match that wire with the name. So in other words, the bank account 12345 could be Joe Schmo's bank account. But if I mistranspose one of those numbers, they're not obligated to check that the account number matches the name on the account. So I can say, I can call you up. I say I'm from the phone company. I'm going to turn off your cell phone unless you pay. And I can go set up a bank account for Mike Belcher, and I say send the money to Verizon. You send your money to Verizon. It can actually go into Mike Beltran's bank account if I give you that number, because the banks are not obligated to name match. So it's a change to the UCC, and it prevents all kinds of fraud from things like the Nigerian prince, so-called Nigerian prince scam, all things like. I'm serious. That's what allows that, because that you can open a bank account in your name, and then you can get money that's intended for other people. And that's a loophole in the UCC. We have good technology. The UCC was written in the late 80s. This particular provision, 4A, Section 4A of the UCC, and now we have computers that can do that automated name match. So anyway, that's what I got. Look forward to answering questions. Thank you.
Speaking of questions, I'm going to ask everyone, if you have a question, to go line up at the microphone. I will recognize you and I'll quarterback the questions, but I'm going to take chair's privilege and ask two questions on behalf of the legislative committee. The first is about one of the major priorities that we discussed during our deliberations and creating the legislative plan, and that was we talked. Senator Boyd talked about the Live Healthy. Well, the Senate President's priority the previous session was Live Local. So a lot of questions that we talked about was the implementation of Live Local. Obviously, affordable housing continues to be a massive issue in our community and across the state. So if just want to ask if there is any legislation being contemplated to maybe be a glitch or any issues with Live Local that you know about. Yeah, yes, sir.
Thanks, Casey. I can speak to one point, and perhaps my colleagues have others. Longboat Key, Dr. Whitman, I know you live out there, came to us and said, look, we agree with the bill. We like the bill, the Live Local bill. A lot of good in it, but in terms of density on some of the projects out here, we've already kind of managed our destiny, if you will. And some of those areas are going to be hard for us to adhere to. So there is, I don't have the exact wording or what it's going to be, but I've talked to the Senate President and the Chief of Staff in the Senate about that, and specifically as relates to Longboat Key in our district. And there are other places around the state, I think, that have had similar instances. We're going to try to fix that. So while we're still excited about and adhering to the Live Local kind of parameters, there are some little niches or glitches, excuse me, that we felt like needed to be tweaked. And so that's one of them that will be tweaked in the coming session vis-a-vis a amendment or a bill, or I mean, some add-on to something that's already going on.
So the Live Local Act was a transformational piece of legislation with regard to affordable housing. I mean, I don't ever think we've seen or we may ever see a piece of legislation like that with regard to affordable housing. And like I mentioned in my opening, with such a big piece of legislation, you are going to have some glitch fixes that are necessary. And the one great thing about President Pasadomo is she's a great listener. And I saw a comment that she made in the paper. So we've been sued, or we, maybe the Senate or the House, have been Pasco County sued. And she said, why don't you just pick up the phone and call me? And we can work through these issues and try to get some legislation that solves your issue. So I do think that because of her willingness to listen and to figure out some of those small little issues that local governments may have with the piece of legislation, that we will we'll have a glitch package to hopefully address some of these issues, including Longboat Key.
I'm going to be honest, and I'm sorry to say this. I voted against the Live Local bill. I mean, I'll tell you a little bit why, and I'll try to keep it concise. It's a massive expansion of government. The price tag was $1 billion. I'm all for affordable housing, but the government cannot fix a problem that the government has created. The federal government, through inflationary spending, has created a massive increase in the cost of everything, including and especially housing. Particularly in Hillsborough County, we've had anti-growth policies that have restricted the availability of housing, particularly in the suburbs. The government has created this problem, and this legislation was intended to fix a problem that the government has created, which is basically how government gets big. Is we do one thing, we create a bunch of unintended problems, and then we go and create more government programs to fix the problems that we've already created. The question I ask in terms of the Live Local Act is essentially there's a heavy bias towards urban areas. The question I ask is, I've always represented a suburban district. Why should somebody in South Riverview, a single mother who's going to Walmart to buy Christmas gifts for her kid, why should she be paying taxes in order to subsidize the urban core? Why should you all be paying taxes to subsidize somebody who's living in South Tampa to the tune of $1 billion? That's 1% of our entire budget, which has expanded massively during the time that I've been in the legislature and before. Why should we be spending money? The predecessor to the Live Local Act was a program. It was intended to benefit nurses and firefighters, teachers, public servants. Okay, I can live with that. We need to pay our public servants. If instead of giving them a $5,000 or $10,000 increase in their salary, which they deserve, we subsidize their housing, fine, I can live with that because it's part of administering the government. Now, the means test has gone up to 6 figures. You can, if you're a family of 4, you can be making up to 6 figures and you can still be eligible for a government subsidy of your housing. Why should someone who's making 6 figures get a government subsidy for their housing? It doesn't make sense. And why should you be taxing somebody else in order to do that? So I voted against the bill. A bunch of Democrats voted against the bill for completely different reasons because they wanted to put rent control into place. But there's something wrong with the bill if some red meat guy like me and a bunch of ultra liberal Democrats are voting against the bill for different reasons. Then you got to scratch your head and think about if we're really doing the right thing.
Thank you, Rep. Beltran. One other question from the legislative committee that I wanted to ask, and want to recognize a good friend, Greg Green. And I promised that Max didn't offer to pay my tab at the Governor's Club for asking this, but the commercial lease tax is an issue that the legislature and the legislative committee for this chamber has been advocating for years and years. I know, Chair, when you were chair of this committee, you all started with that. Any headway you see on that for this upcoming session?
So just so we all know what that tax is, it's a tax on commercial rent. We are the only state in the country, and I think the only jurisdiction except for the city of New York City that charges this type of tax. And we've whittled it down. I think I was maybe the chair of the legislative committee when this was still on the platform. It's a huge, it was at the time a huge fiscal hit to the state. And we've whittled it down, and I'm confident that hopefully over the next couple legislative sessions that we'll whittle it down hopefully to 0 and then just repeal it off the books.
Just one more brief thing on that, and Chair Robinson's exactly right. Actually, when I was in the House, Kelly Stargell was in the Senate, and we were chair of our respective committees, and it's the first time we finally got something passed that started the whittling down of the lease tax. Then it was about $2 billion of revenue, so it was really hard to just rip the Band-Aid off and kind of discard that $2 billion of revenue. So to Rep. Robinson's point, it's been coming down. I think it's slated to come down again. And if I had my way right now, in light of where we are as a state, and everybody's mentioned the finances of the state right now, I think this would be a great year to just eliminate the rest of it. I don't think that'll happen, but it's certainly something I'm going to be asking for.
Yes, everybody wants this tax to go away. It'd be great if it did. My guess is I agree with Senator Boyd. It probably won't. I ran the bill to lower it to where it's at today, and you could credit me with the largest tax increase in Florida and the largest tax cut in Florida, because what we did was, if you remember, here at this breakfast a couple years ago, we talked about the fairness issue as it relates to the Florida retailers. And what I mean by that, Will Robinson, I know your family has a retail business, but online sales tax. Remember, a couple years ago, when you bought something from out of state, you didn't have to put your name in, you didn't have to pay the taxes. And what we did, we were, I think, state number 48 in the country to say, from a matter of fairness, that if you buy goods online, you should still pay that sales tax because the other state would be collecting it anyway. And so what we did is we collected that, and rather than putting that towards general revenue, what we did is we put it towards the commercial lease tax, specifically that to lower it to where it is today. I will tell you that the amount of revenue that we've collected from that online sales tax has exceeded all expectations. So there is an opportunity there to continue to lower it, but I think we have, I'd rather get this bridge fixed, get some of the roads way out east fixed, and spend a lot more money on infrastructure before we cut any additional taxes there.
Thank you, Senator. All right, to audience questions. You know the drill. I'll state your name and your question, and I'll quarterback who answers it.
Dr. Jim Whitman, member of the Chamber of Commerce and also former president of the Longboat Key Republican Club, where I was known as Mr. Manatee, since we're in two different counties. My question is for Representative
Beltran?
Beltran. Speaking of small, unnecessary taxes, there's one that really sticks in my craw. If you don't have a driver's license and you need ID to vote in Florida, you have to get an ID card. And there is a minimal tax to do that of $25. You can't get away from it. If you're indigent, you still have to pay that tax. That smacks of a poll tax. And I think that the Republican legislature would put a feather in its cap if it got rid of that $25 fee, which revenue-wise can't be very much.
So
Thanks a lot
anybody
for
want to
listening.
comment on the $25 fee for an ID card?
Yeah, no, that's I appreciate that. That's a good point. Like I said, I want to get rid of the charge for the driver's license. I think the non-driver ID that you're referring to is also issued by the same authority. So that should be in the bill. My aide is back there. We were driving down this morning. We were stuck in traffic, so I asked him about the bill. The bill's not out of drafting, but we will check on that. And if you'd like to follow up with the office, but I think that to answer your question succinctly, that should be in the same bucket as the CWP or the driver license, which I don't think we should be charging for. So that fee should be eliminated as well, in my opinion, for the reasons I stated and for the reasons you stated.
I believe you have to go to the DMV
Right.
to get that.
Yeah, so the DMV's doing the driver license, and they shouldn't be. I can't imagine it's a good idea to go and charge $25. And the cost of collecting that's at least a couple dollars by the time you pay the interchange. It's just stupid. And then if you move into the state, you move within the state, you move from county to county, wherever you're going. I don't understand why when we charge sales tax, we charge property tax, and we get grants from the federal government. That's like 90%. The rest of this is just, unless you really need to charge a fee to discourage some antisocial behavior, you really shouldn't be charging nickel and diming the citizens. Thanks.
Senator Bennett, you want to comment on that? No, I'm kidding. You'll be holding court later. I understand. All right. Yes, sir.
Hi there. I'm Dr. Steve Tinsworth, a local orthodontist. I'd like to thank the Chamber for coordinating this presentation each year. And I wish to say a huge thanks to this delegation for your historic support for high-quality dental education for care of Florida citizens, especially in our area, to provide excellent dental care. We have the State College of Florida Dental Hygiene School, MTC Dental Assisting School, LECOM Dental School, and there are other great programs around the state. This past year, the legislature passed and Governor DeSantis signed legislation to help secure care for people who had no dentists in their county. This was a major task to get interest for a dentist to go to an underserved area, and that was highly appreciated after 2 or 3 years of trying to accomplish that. Today, dental students graduate several $100,000 in debt before they start private practice. Some who go on to specialty dental training like oral surgery, orthodontics, perio, pediatric dental care for 2 to 3 years more may have a debt approaching $800,000. They will have spent from 20 to 24 years of education to provide care and must obtain a license in Florida to be involved. And this leads to my point of focus. COVID created telehealth, that some commercial companies from out of state, maybe out of the country, were providing certain care by mail. There are currently no Florida laws making them treat to the standards of Florida law that licensed dentists do. That leaves Florida citizens unprotected as there is no law controlling them. My thanks to Senator Boyd for last year developing Senate Bill 302 to correct that, and it passed the Senate but did not get through all the House. There was one committee that ended up holding it up, and this year, both Senate bill and House bill are up. So I would like to ask the delegation to help support House Bill 855 by Representative McClure to combine with Senator Boyd's fine bill to help support getting this passed so that we have quality care and protection for the state of Florida.
Thank you, Dr. Tensworth, and we did have a good time working on that together last year, and we passed it. And simply said, it's, in this particular bill, dealt with orthodontics, and many people have used the orthodontic services online, and there's a number that have been successful with those treatments, but there's a lot of people that do that online orthodontic treatment that have bad outcomes, and sometimes very severe outcomes, and the medical folks can speak to that better than I can, but we passed a bill that kind of put some guidelines and some parameters around those services. We're not saying do away with them, we're not saying you can't do it, but put some guidelines around, have some authority that they can also be governed by. Because as it is right now in Florida law, if you're one of those customers and you have a complaint, there's really nowhere to go because the Board of Dentistry doesn't deal with it. The AG's office, where oftentimes those complaints come in, have no one to refer them to. Last week, I was particularly interested in an article that was in Wall Street Journal on one of the companies. It has Smile in it, it has Direct in it, but I won't say their name together, that has filed bankruptcy, and they told their customers that we're no longer able to service your appliances or your questions or deal with any concerns you have. But if you owe money to us vis-a-vis a payment plan that we put you on, you still have to pay those payments. I mean, I can't imagine in my wildest dreams how, A, anybody would pay them, but B, who would think as a company that that was responsible. So we're gonna go at it again this year. I have a little hope because the guy that you mentioned earlier in the House side, Representative McClure, is rising, as Will has talked about some of the rising stars in the legislature. He is definitely one of those and has a lot of clout, and he's interested in the issue. So together, I think our partnership, I believe, and you don't ever want to outrun your headlights, but I believe that this year will be a good year for that bill.
Thank you very much, and thanks to all for that participation.
As Senator Boyd mentioned, Representative McClure will probably be the appropriations chair next year, so I'm all in. So where can I sign up on that? But in all candor, I chaired a health policy subcommittee for a couple of years, and we deal with these issues a lot. Should folks have the freedom of their health care, or should government get involved? And the best example I can use or think of is telemedicine. At the very beginning, telemedicine was thought to be this awful thing that how can you have the same quality of care as telehealth? And I know, Senator Boyd, you ran a auditory, I believe, telehealth bill. So we always have to balance those types of issues, whether or not it's the freedom is good and opening up and lowering costs for the consumer, or maybe there's some ideas or some things out there that are not good to have that type of freedom because you don't have the structure necessary to have recourse if something goes wrong. So it sounds to me that that's a good issue, and I'll talk to Chair McClure about it when I get back in.
Appreciate it.
Yes, my vote, co-sponsor, what can I do?
I mean, I just want to say two things. I guess if you're wondering why I'm lisping a little, I actually got some orthodontics in right now, so so I'm a consumer of that. That's I don't know how you do that by telehealth, quite frankly. I actually had an appointment this morning. I actually moved it so I could come down here and see you all. So I'll be going later in the week, to make sure it's fitting well before I go up to session. But in all seriousness, like the consumer protection issue that Senator Boyd mentioned is concerning. There actually is a Florida law that says they can't do that. In other words, they can't get a customer on a payment plan, then sell that to a finance company, not subject to the defenses of non-performance of the contract, and then have the finance company collect against the consumer while the company is not performing. That's actually there's a Florida law on that. So if anyone's getting ripped off by that, or anyone wants to tell their constituents about that, but it's a little difficult. You have to do attachments. You have to check that it's not damaging the gums. So like I'm all for telehealth. I mean, I do telehealth with my kind of general physician. I go and do the blood work. He reads the blood work. He says you're good or not, and that's kind of the extent of it most of the time. So there's some things like you can't do an eye doctor can't do telehealth. I got to go to the dentist tomorrow. Like they can't do that, but I wish they could. That'd be nice. But some things you can't do by telehealth. So so there's some limitations. But anyway, I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Just additional input. I was past president of the Florida Association of Orthodontists and the Southern Association of Orthodontists, which covers 11 states. There has been major abuse with this company and additional companies. And I appreciate that Senator Boyd took this on. We're kind of being a bellwether for the rest of the country in dealing with this. And it's a significant issue to put some parameters that are guardrails protecting the public. And we're there to help. And there are certainly Zoom and other elements that facilitate care and keep health care costs down, and those are important to stay in place. But providing these guardrails is very important. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Last question. Before a second, I thought you were going to get into eyeball wars for a minute when you started talking about that, but that's okay. Good. All right. Thank you. All right. Last question.
Hi, I'm Sheila Fiakowski, and I work for Forest Properties. I got that job because I sold them a Chamber of Commerce membership over 10 years ago. Been there since.
Wow.
They flew me to Cambridge after that, and I supervised a couple of apartment communities off Ranch Lake Boulevard. And about that time, I was finishing up my degree, my second degree from UF, and they took a gamble on me as a single mom with 4 kids. And I moved here from Texas in 2006, and to Manatee County. Have been there ever since. My first degree was from A&M, so I'm an Aggie and a Gator. So, yeah, I get really conflicted during football season now. But I really loved Manatee County, one, because it felt like home. You know, having grown up in a small town in Texas, it has always felt like home to me, and my boys have done really well here. I've got one that just got into the National Honor Society at MTC, another one working at Sarasota Ford in the mechanics program at MTC. And a couple more. And I was able to choice my kids into school near my job, off 70, and drive and get a job where I could support my family and get to their sports events over in Buffalo Creek and to my house. And so my concern really for my residents of the apartments and for me as a person, I live off 64 now, so I'm concerned about infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry, I was getting
And so
there.
for my residents and for myself, I've heard we may add some exits off 75. And so if we are doing that, would it be to 44th? What neighborhoods would it affect? Would it really alleviate traffic? So I want to hear more about maybe.
Infrastructure? Okay.
Yeah, not just the bridge.
Okay.
But what else is going on?
Any Gators up here want to talk about that? No? Okay. All right, go ahead.
I thought you were going to ask a question about school choice, which we passed last session.
That's wonderful. All set.
I'm not aware of any new interstate exchange. We are redoing a couple major you're probably familiar with the Ellington exit, a major expansion going on there. I would just say in general, besides the bridges, we're going to have obviously the 44th Avenue piece. We're hopefully going to continue that piece. We have several appropriations in the books to expand existing roadways, but I wouldn't count on a new interstate exchange in a very long time. We talked about the port at one point, but I don't believe that's on the books right now. I recently met with the FDOT district secretary, and he didn't mention to me anything about a new interstate exchange, but just the massive amount of projects, some of which are funded in this area, bridges and expansion of roads. I don't think we have many new roads on the books right now, and also resurfacing projects. We're going to be doing a lot of resurfacing projects and expansion of lane projects throughout the county in general, but I don't believe we have any new interstate exchange projects going on that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I'll comment real quick. I'll say that in Sarasota, we do have a new interchange coming very soon. And this is where, as a delegation, we're all going to be contributing, and this is why we're in such great shape. I know in Sarasota, we're going to do divergent diamonds, I believe, on Fruitville starting next year. We're doing it on Clark, and then we're going to do Clark. So almost every single one of our interchanges are going to have that new divergent diamond. But the reason why we have had success there, the reason why Manatee County has that sound wall almost all the way, you could thank Galvano for that. You could thank all future expansions and all these roads that are being built to meet the demands that all these new residents are coming in to deal with. Jim Boyd, right? Hopefully we'll be in a position to be the both of us are going to be in the leadership team next year. He'll be the president the 2 years after that. And we're going to be very well funded here. And hopefully over the next 4 to 6 years, along with our House partners, we'll have a lot more money to spend on meeting the demands that's been created by all these refugees that are coming from all over, political refugees, education refugees from all across the country. Listen, it's hard to live in a place that's as beautiful and as perfect as our community, right? And you can never put up a sign saying stop. You just have to manage that growth and manage the infrastructure, but we're going to have the funds. Florida, I mean, think of how lucky we are to live in communities where we've always been growing. Think about the alternative. And but time will help us. We have the best team you could possibly have, and we're gonna have a lot of money coming this way soon.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to have to wrap up here. I want to give a special thank you again to Spectrum by Charter Communications for their continued sponsorship and support. Thank you. To Manatee Educational Television, Charles and your team, thank you all for being such great supporters. Our legislative delegation, also the staff, wave your hands, staff. You guys really make the trains run on time. Thank you all for your hard work. And to, last but not least, Pier 22 for being such wonderful hosts and for that wonderful pancake breakfast. Thank you all for coming. Have happy holidays.